Phil Kelly. I lead business development and sales for the Americas, and I work for ConsenSys, which is the largest independent blockchain company out there. We're around 500 people around the world, and we focus on the Ethereum network. So we've seen some really big developments this year, and while many of them didn't start with the pandemic, I think they've reached new levels of appreciation and urgency in some cases, given the year that we find ourselves in. Best example of that is central bank digital currency, where we've seen a remarkable amount of activity announcements so far since the beginning of the year. In ConsenSys, we've announced work with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Reserve Bank of Australia, Bank of Thailand, in Europe, work with SocGen, and we have other unannounced activity underway. And I'm not saying for a moment that all that has its roots in the pandemic. It has much more to do with the fundamental benefits of blockchain and modernization of the monetary system. And it's also in reaction, for sure, to Libra and the Chinese digital currency work. It's helped by advancements in technology on scalability and cost. But I think the business case is now even stronger and more urgent given the year that we've been through. And one example of that is that some of the central banks are now actively looking and talking more about the potential to better serve underbanked with digital currency and reduce the reliance on physical contact with notes. And all of that, of course, then ultimately has implications for payments. But aside from that, we've also seen a lot of securities-related activity with major institutions. So, for example, DTCC announced Project Whitney earlier this year, where they experimented with Ethereum for private equity issuance. NASDAQ has announced a digital asset element to their market services platform. Citi and Goldman announced an equity swap on Ethereum. Options Clearing Corp announced a securities lending solution. So there's really been an amazing amount of institutional financial services activity this year. And as I say, some of it is despite the pandemic and is the culmination of previous work. Some of it is, has a new level of urgency and appreciation because of the pandemic. I'd say also, outside of the strict definition of financial services, we've also seen further activity in supply chain and related areas of the market. For example, we announced a major project earlier in the year to build a platform to improve global trade operations for major commodities companies such as Cargill and Louis Dreyfus and ADM. And I think also the early days of the pandemic certainly exposed ongoing challenges and room for improvement in supply chain management, in particular in times of stress. And some of that, an example of that was the fact that, again, in the early days, we saw simultaneous shortages of goods and surpluses further down the supply chain, and regular market forces couldn't cause the changes required to fix that fast enough. And there was limited visibility into the supply chain overall to allow smart intervention on that. So I think there's probably work that's underway to think about how to further use blockchain to improve those areas. So yeah, overall a pretty remarkable year.